back to The Dream, the Journey, and the Promise with me, Ann Enda. This is a channel in which I'll be walking you through people's lives as they go from their dreams through their journeys and to the realization of their promise. So, in my last episode, I shared with you all a bit about my story and how it all started for me. And today I'm just going to pick up where I left off and give you just a little bit more of my story. So, if you didn't watch last week's episode, I shared with you all how in my personal journey, what actually prompted it was me complaining about my ex-husband, and I was complaining to my mom about it. And she then, after hearing everything I had to say, instead of siding with me and beating him down, she asked, when am I going to stop playing the victim? And that was a big realization. Even though in the moment it was upsetting and it made me feel betrayed, I'm so thankful to her. She's since gone home to be with the Lord. But I'm so thankful to her for saying that out and just having the courage to not just, make me feel good in the moment, but actually spark something in me that started this journey or this awareness that, oh, there is some stuff in me that needs to be worked out. Actually, a lot of stuff that needs to be worked out. But anyway, so I shared that part with you. And what I want to share with you today is really about forgiveness. So once I had come to the realization, after my mom told me that I was actually playing the victim, and I got to thinking about it, and this was over a period of some time. It was a few months later, and I was thinking about it, and I actually came to the realization that she was in fact right. And I was thinking back on my life and thinking, boy, I really, for some odd reason, loved playing the victim. Like, I like people feeling sorry for me. I would tell them my story, tell them what the other person did, and I wanted them to feel sorry for me, and not even knowing that that was holding me back. Anyway, so after a few months of reflecting on this, I I started praying and asking God, okay, God, now that I'm aware of this part of me, how then do I get out of it? And I would pray and I would, meditate, and I would watch, just Christian video after video, because I was in this small little room. Like I told you all last week, I had ended up homeless after the separation with my husband. I ended up homeless. So at some point, my son and I were staying in a motel. It was this like two rooms, two really small rooms. So one was the living area and the kitchen, and then a bedroom. And I would stay there all day because I had no transportation. I had nowhere to go. And literally all I could do in that place was watch TV, and there was nothing worth watching except the Christian channels. So I would turn it on and watch the Christian channels, and I would listen to video after video, and preacher after preacher, and then I would read my Bible, and I would play some worship music. And what's interesting is, after a while, the Lord began to speak to me on forgiveness, and I didn't understand why, but He began to speak to me about forgiving people. And my immediate thought was like, well, I've forgiven everybody that I can think of. And after I said that, then he started bringing names to me of people that I hadn't forgiven. And oh my gosh, this blew my mind, because one of them specifically was a relationship that I had been in over 20 years ago. And after that relationship, I had ended up really hurt. I remember I was young at the time, and I was, you know, banking on this relationship. You know how you have your first, real relationship, and it was exciting, and this person had promised me, one thing, and then I ended up finding out it was not what he said was didn't pan out. Whether or not he meant it at the time, it didn't pan out. And I had banked on that. I had banked on what he had said. He had promised that, he was gonna, be with me, and he was gonna take care of me. But I was young. I was in my early 20s, and I just believed that. And so when it turned out that that wasn't the case, a few years later, I found out that, well, he had actually got married and moved on, and he didn't mean what he had told me, or for whatever reason, it didn't work out like he said it would. And I was so hurt. I was so hurt that I, I literally did not know how to move on because I had put all my eggs in that basket. I had banked on that. I had banked on that relationship, and I thought this is my way forward. So when that all fell apart, I didn't have a plan. I didn't have an alternate way to go, and I was just crushed. And I remember I was so crushed that somehow in that moment, I had a child at the time. My son was like a few months old when I found out that he had actually moved on and wasn't even planning on coming to be with me. But I had to tell myself, okay, well, this is not just about you now. You have a child you have to take care of. So you have to figure it out. And I was in a foreign country. I had moved from, Kenya, where I grew up. I'd moved to the US. I was still pretty new in the US. I was supposed to be going to school. Now I couldn't go to school anymore because I had a child to take care of. I was working two jobs and just trying to figure it out. And the pain was so bad I didn't realize how bad it was till later on in life, I realized that I had actually just suppressed that whole memory just so I could cope in that moment. Like uh, later on, as I was talking about it and thinking about it, it was like I didn't even remember bits and pieces of it because I had tucked it away so deep inside me that I was I was trying to survive I guess it was a coping mechanism, and I was just trying to make it through that time, which I did. I made it through. I ended up raising my child. I ended up moving on pretty much. But I thought I had let it go and I really hadn't. So when God started to bring this to me, he was giving me like there was names that were coming to me and he was letting me know that you have to forgive. You have to let go of these things. And like I said, I didn't understand why. And I actually thought I had forgiven. And it just wasn't that one. There was a few other names on the list. And it wasn't just like, just say you forgive. The instruction I felt that I got internally was okay, you need to deal with this on the inside of you. But not only that, you need to contact these people and let them know that you've forgiven them. Oh my gosh. I was still prideful at that time. I mean, I still am a little prideful, but I think God is working on that, and I'm a lot better now than I was then. But anyway, so I had to put my pride aside and I said, okay, I have to be obedient to God. I'm sure there's a reason why He's having me forgive, do this. So I started on the list and I first had to pray about it. And I started calling the first person and I called them and I, I had to let them know that I forgave them. And it wasn't just about saying that I forgave them. As I was doing that, because God had been working inside of me for this, specific thing, it's like as I was calling them and letting them know I forgave them, it was a freeing that I can't even begin to explain to you. I had no idea that I was still holding on to this stuff. This was, like I said, over 20 years ago. I thought I had dealt with it. I thought, okay, that's another chapter of my life. I don't even think about it much, except when I'm talking about it negatively. I don't think about it. But I was still carrying that inside and didn't even know that I was. So, anyway, I called them and I told them, I had forgiven them. Some were like, okay. Some of them said, well, you can't forgive if, if I haven't asked you to. But anyway, it didn't matter what the other person's reaction is. That's the bottom line. It didn't matter how the other person reacted. This was an exercise for me. So I had to call them and do this. And as I was doing it, God was freeing me of all the heart I was carrying inside, the bitterness, just this heavy bag that I'd been, just carrying upon myself for so many years. Remember that the Bible tells us like to take God's yoke upon us, give him ours, and take his on, because his is light, his burden is easy, his yoke is light. So we're supposed to give him all our burdens and we're supposed to take on his. And I didn't even much understand that until I started beginning to feel like free on the inside. I can't even explain it, but it felt lighter. It felt like whatever I was carrying on the inside was just taken away from me. And and like I said, I didn't realize that I was carrying this inside, and this bitterness was eating me from the inside out. I remember I would have like headaches. I would get to a point like in my day where I was stressed out, and my head would just hurt to where I would just have to sit down, take a minute, and just take deep breaths to make that pain go away. And once I released this, I no longer had that level of stress inside of me. Scientists say that when we carry that bitterness inside of us, it's almost like it eats us up. That's what causes diseases. It's like there's a dis-ease inside of you. You know what I mean? So it's like you're not at ease inside of you. And so this begins to manifest in several different ways. We begin to um, get sick, like physically sick. We begin to get these migraines and headaches, and we try to treat them with pills and with medication, which is just, covering up what the real problem is. And on the inside, we are carrying a load that God did not intend for us to ever carry. So I'm sharing this with you because I want to tell you the importance of forgiving others. It's so important that you let go of whatever it is that you're carrying, whatever it is people did to you. It doesn't even matter anymore. It has no bearing on where your life is going unless you choose to hold on to it. And then in that case, it becomes a trap. It holds you back and prevents you from moving forward. Because while we're holding on to this thing behind us, this thing that happened, years, months, however long ago it happened, we're holding on to this, and it prevents us from moving forward because you can't move forward when you're holding on to a weight that's stuck in the past. Does that make sense? Like physically, you're holding on to something in the past and you're not going to be able to move forward because you can't drag that thing from the past to the future with you. You have to let it go. You really have to let it go. And since then, God has been teaching me the importance of forgiveness. There's so many verses I can share with you today, but I'll probably share them in future episodes. It's like just important. Let people go. We have them on this hook and we keep saying that, hey, I'm not gonna, because I can't forget what they did to me. It was so bad. It was so terrible. But it's not hurting them, it's hurting you. You're not going to be able to move forward. You're not going to be able to progress in whatever it is you intend to accomplish in life. You have to let that go. So that was the start of my journey. Like the first thing after I realized that, oh, I'm playing a victim, and I brought it to God and said, okay, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to change. I'm yielding to you, whatever it is you want to do with me. I'm ready. And the first thing he brought to me was forgiveness. So that just shows me how important forgiveness is. It's like, unless I forgive, I'm not going to be able to take any steps forward. I had to forgive these people, called them, actually called them and spoke with them and told them I forgave them. And then the funny thing is, after I did that, I would then talk about these situations because in the past, I used to talk about these things, but it would evoke some emotion inside of me. I didn't realize that that was the forgiveness, the unforgiveness I was carrying inside. I just thought, well, it was a bad thing they did to me. So it is natural that I should feel angry or that I should feel this way inside, right? But the reality is, it was the bitterness inside that I was feeling and that was eating me up. And every time I spoke about it, it's like my body was reliving that trauma that I felt back then. So, can you imagine what your insides are going through? I remember listening to Lisa Turkest. If y'all listen to her, great woman, great testimony. But she was talking about one time she had gone through a tough time in her marriage, through some infidelity, and it hit her so hard. But anyway, she went through a tough period, and she went to the doctor because she had like pain in her abdomen. So she went to the doctor to have it checked out. And, I'm probably, giving you the short version of it. You can always look up her testimony and hear the full story. But anyway, the doctor found that her body inside, he actually asked her, have you been in a car wreck recently? She was like, no, why? She said, because the trauma inside your body, it appears as though appears similar to someone who had actually been in a really bad car accident. And that just blew my mind. It's like, wow, that is amazing that the things we go through, like mentally, emotionally, actually harm us so much inside that it's comparable to someone who had been in a wreck, that their body parts inside were so tense and mangled because of the trauma they experienced. That's the same way. um, that's what really happens to our bodies when we're holding on to this bitterness and this anger. And like I was saying, when I would talk about these situations, it would just evoke that same emotion inside of me, and I would almost relive that feeling again over and over again, so putting my body through the same trauma. But after I went through the process and forgave them, and God actually just lifted it off of me, like I sincerely prayed and said, God, I don't want to hold this against them anymore. Help me forgive them. Like I'm not sure what this looks like, but help me forgive them in the way you want me to. And so He took that burden away. And I found that after that, anytime I would talk about it, there was zero emotion. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel, nothing heightened inside, no bitterness inside. It was just like I was telling a story like any other day. And then I realized, wow, that's what forgiveness feels like. That's amazing. I had actually forgiven and was free of whatever I was carrying, whatever the bitterness was. But anyway, that has been such a pivotal point in my journey that has freed me and allowed me to keep moving forward. So I want to encourage you all today. Like, if you're holding anything, pray about it. Ask God to show you what it is that you might be holding on to inside. Some of you already know, like when you're talking about what people did to you and you get angry all over again, that's a sign of unforgiveness. So you need to let that go. Let people go, so that it can free you and allow you to move forward. So I pray that this blesses you. I pray that you will take me up on this offer to go and forgive people, forgive them. It's going to do you a world of good, and it's going to propel you forward in ways you never even dreamed of. But I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And until next time, remember to love fully, forgive freely, and make each moment count. God bless you.